I know it's been a while. I actually recorded 3 videos back in October that I never even got around to editing because things have been so crazy, but they're announcing the winners of the Hugo Awards in a couple of days, and I actually have finished most of my reading that I wanted to do. I think I read pretty much everything new that I wanted to for this year's Hugo Awards. I just didn't reread everything I was hoping to. So today I want to actually wrap up my rankings for the categories that I was reading in, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the best series category. Also, my husband just got a new camera and he's messing around with it while I'm filming today, so I really have no idea how any of this is going to look or sound, and I don't really remember how to talk on camera. This should be a good time. Let's just go over what series were finalists, and then after that I'll just talk about my personal ranking. Just a reminder for those of you, probably most of you, who did not watch me do this last year, I'm not ranking in terms of what I think will win. I'm just going through the category and talking about my personal favorites and how I would rank them in order of personal preference. So I really have no idea how people will vote. I don't know if I have like typical taste of how people are going to be voting or if I'm a weirdo. So here were the finalists. We had the Daevabad Trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. We had the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. And now I'm going to double check, is this series really called Murderbot Diaries? I just wrote down Murderbot because I knew what I meant, and now I don't know what I meant. So I'm going to double check that. Yep, it's really called the Murderbot Diaries. That's actually a pretty funny series name. All right, we had the Lady Astronaut series by Robinette Kowal. The Interdependency trilogy by John Scalzi. We had the Poppy War trilogy by R.F. Kuang. And my one Hugo's fail this year was the October Daye series by Seanan McGuire. I am actually a fan of Seanan McGuire overall. There are quite a few of her books and series that I do like and others that I don't, but there's like 17 million October Daye books, and I heard from a lot of people that it takes the series a while to get going, and then I couldn't find the copy of it that I got recently, so I just haven't read October Daye. But you know what? Seanan McGuire has been nominated in the Best Series category basically every year since there has been a Best Series category, and I don't think she's won yet, so I'm just going to assume that it's okay that I didn't read October Daye this year, and it will probably get nominated again in like 2 years. And if it's the winner this year, then as penance, I will read the entire series no matter how terrible it is. So last year for the Best Series category, there were a lot of longer series, and I just read the first book in pretty much all the series and then ranked from there. But this was interesting. So I guess out of the series this year, I had already read Daevabad Trilogy, and I had already read all of the Lady Astronaut books that were caught up, and the others were fairly short and doable series. So other than October Daye, which I didn't touch, I have read, I'm up to date on all of these series. This is also going to be kind of interesting because there are some series that I really liked but haven't read anything from in a year, and then series that I just finished. So let's review the criteria for series that could be nominated for Best Series, just so we know what we're talking about. I had to look this up. I usually know it, but I kind of forgot. So there have to be at least 3 works in the series, one of which has to have been published, last year, the year that's getting the award, and there is a word count requirement. It needs to total 240,000 words. So if a series doesn't win this year, and I think it needs to have 2 new works published totaling at least 240,000 words to become eligible again. So I would say October Daye has a pretty good chance of getting nominated again. With Murderbot, it would depend, I guess, how many works get published, because they are all novellas except for one, and the others are like completed trilogies, so this is pretty much their shot. Oh no, Lady Astronaut is still going as well, so that could potentially come back. So I'm gonna rank the 5 that I did read, and I'll start with my least favorite and end with my favorite. Overall, this is a really strong category for me. There's a lot of series in here that I really love, or at least greatly enjoyed. The Poppy War. Those of you that have been watching me know that I have very mixed feelings about the Poppy War trilogy. I read book 1 pretty soon after it released. I read book 2 pretty soon after it released. And then on book 3, I just hardcore procrastinated, ended up forcing myself through it, and kind of hated the experience. And in the end, I've kind of come to the conclusion that Poppy War is just not a trilogy that's for me. I think there's a lot of accomplishment. I think R.F. Kuang, there are a lot of great things about the series, but what it came down to for me is I absolutely hated all the characters, and I don't like reading things where there doesn't seem to be even a single decent person, or maybe there was like one character that is halfway to being sort of a decent person. And I don't mind totally things that are grimdark or have tough things. I did feel super traumatized after reading these books because of the brutality, but I mean, a lot of those things were based on real world things. It's not that there's no brutality in the world, but I do think that, you know, there are some people out there that are kind of okay. So in the end, I just didn't feel very good after reading this trilogy. And it's not that I think it's bad per se, it just really ended up not being for me. So that's why I'm ranking this as my least favorite. In number 4, I'm putting The Interdependency by John Scalzi. I enjoyed the heck out of this trilogy, actually. I have a full series review up of it, which I'll link to somewhere or another. The reason I'm putting this in 4th is just honestly because I liked it less and thought it was sort of less good and less profound than the other series in the category this year. But this was a super fun science fiction space opera adventure. My husband and I both enjoyed the heck out of it, and I would definitely recommend it as a fun read. I just didn't like it as much as some of the others on this list, so that's why it's so far down. Everything from here on out I think is really, really good. It was kind of hard to rank these because they have different things that make them good. But in number 3, I put the Lady Astronaut series by Mary Robinette Kowal. I think this is a great series. I think the characters are great. The 3rd book, especially, The Relentless Moon, which is also in the best novel category this year, was a really, really strong book, probably my favorite from the series. She explores a lot of important themes. I think the way it's an alternate history series is really interesting. So I'm definitely going to keep reading all the Lady Astronaut books. I overall like this series quite a bit. I just don't actually have really strong emotions towards it. There are things in it that I care about or like. I think it's very well done. I think it seems to be only getting better. And I think it's a very well crafted series so far. But just the other 2 that are left on the list, I love more. So that's why this is number 3. Picking between the top 2 for me was just really, really hard because I really liked them both. But I just finished reading Murderbot like last month, I think, and the Daevabad trilogy concluded last year, and that was, you know, the last time I read a book from there. So they're almost from very different periods of my life, and I've had a strong emotional response to both of them. I love them both. I think I went with sort of what I was feeling in my heart for this ranking, but honestly, this could have been a tie. So I did put Murderbot in number 2, not in number 1, even though I just enjoyed the heck out of Murderbot. I really got attached. I will do a series review of this at some point as well. I loved the character. I love what Martha Wells did with it. I'll talk in a minute about why I put Daevabad first. I had a lot of people telling me to read Murderbot because I would love it, and I did. I really, really hope that she keeps writing this series, and I guess the reason that I am putting Daevabad trilogy as my favorite from this list is because I didn't start loving Murderbot until the 3rd novella. I thought the first 2 were very strong, but I gave them sort of just like a solid rating, and it was only as the series progressed and we got more into developing the character that I think it became really, really outstanding. And for me, the Daevabad trilogy, I also improved as it went on. Like, I think S.A. Chakraborty, her character writing was better in the 3rd book than it was from the beginning, but I was hooked on that series and captivated on it from the beginning, sort of despite its flaws, and it's definitely one of those series that I love, maybe in spite of some of its flaws, but because I just loved it from the beginning, and because it had a special place in my heart for several years now, that's why I ended up putting that in first place. But if Murderbot keeps going, or, you know, I look back to it in the future, this could easily change places. This is sort of, I would call this a purely emotional ranking. It has nothing to do with how I feel about the quality or strength of these 2 series. So like I said, Daevabad trilogy I'm putting in first place. I don't know if this series has any chance of winning. I don't know how actually popular it was. I think what captured me so much about the Daevabad trilogy, honestly, was the world building. I mean, I really cared about the characters from the beginning. I did get, you know, invested in them, but I just loved that S.A. Chakraborty created this fully realized, complex fantasy world based on actual research into all these actual mythologies, and it wasn't sort of the kind of old fantasy that you would get with like some very corny Arabian Nights skin on it or something like that. Like, it really felt like researched and authentic to the folklore that was being used, and it really felt transporting in a way that I hadn't felt from a fantasy in a while when I read it. I just love her use of actual history and actual mythology into how this world was built. That's what I love about fantasy a lot of the time. And of course, I did get very invested in the characters and their journeys. I actually feel like some of the characters, it did appeal to sort of a younger part of my brain. Like, I would have been so obsessed with it when I was a teenager, like 15 years ago. But anyway, the series was very special to me, and she did, in my opinion, manage to stick the landing. So that's why I am ranking this as my favorite series from this year's Hugo finalists for best series. So that's my ranking. We'll see how it all pans out. I'll probably do a reaction video if I have time and talk about, my thoughts on the winners, even though, like I said, I don't honestly even really care that much. This is just an excuse for me to have some fun and do my own rankings. But, reaction. I'll try to do one.